Hoş geldiniz, günaydın. Adım Cenk Niksarlı. Bugün Forcerta'nın 2019'dan itibaren temsil ettiği AIOps alanındaki çözümü StackState'i anlatıyor olacağız. Burada benimle beraber Mark Arts da sunum yapıyor olacak. Mark Arts, StackState'in kıdemli çözüm mühendisi. Ben kariyerimin çoğunda bankalarda çalıştığım için, bankaların bilgi teknolojisi uygulamalarına çalıştığım için AIOps çözümünün gelişimini ve ihtiyacı nasıl karşıladığını çok iyi hisseden birisiyim. Açıkçası sizlerin de kariyerlerinizde eminim karşılaştığınız case'leri burada göreceğinizi düşünüyorum. Ama AIOps'a kısaca değinecek olursak, AIOps aslında çok yeni bir kavram değil. Daha önceden ITOps, ondan sonra ITOA diye kavramların bugün AIOps olarak IT hizmetlerinin entegre olarak makine öğrenme ve yapay zeka çözümlerinin de bir araya geldiği ve artık sorunların çözümüne daha kolay ulaşmamızı sağlayan bir çözüm olarak geliyor. Bununla ilgili de Forcerta Üniversitesi'nde bir blog yazımız var. Bu blog yazımızı ve kaynaklarını okumanızı tavsiye ederim. Yani çok kolay okunabilen bir doküman ve ITOA'den AIOps'a kadar ne farkları olduğunu anlatan bir yazımız. Dediğim gibi hepimiz kariyerlerimizde mutlaka karşılaşmışızdır. Belki hala yaşıyoruzdur. Ben kariyerimin çoğunda bunları yaşadım. Uykusuz gecelerimiz, eve gidemediğimiz hafta sonlarımız oldu veya iş ortamlarında çok değerli iş saatlerinde hizmet kayıplarına sebep olan sorunlar yaşadık. Bu sorunları da çoğunlukla harcadığımız zaman sorunun sebebini bulmakla geçti. Bulduktan sonra çözmek çok kısa sürüyordu çünkü ekip işine hakim, konusuna ehil ekipler olduğu için çözüm çok kolay geliyordu ama daha çok sorunun kaynağını bulmakla zaman geçiyordu. Sebebi de ortamlar karmaşık, IT ürünleri ve hizmetleri çok çeşitli ve bu karmaşıklık bu arada azalmıyor, gittikçe artıyor. O yüzden de acı daha çok sorunun sebebini bulmak tarafında geçiyordu. Ne güzel ki artık AIOps gibi bir kavram var ve bu kavramları sağlayan ürünler var. StackState de bunlardan liderlerden bir tanesi. Göreceksinizdir. Gartner'da da baktığınızda göreceksinizdir. Bayağı başarılı ve destekleyici çözümler sağlıyor. Büyük yatırımlar yapıyor IT operasyon birimleri bugün kurumlarda. IT altyapıları için yapılan yatırımların yanında görüyoruz ki artık kompleksitenin artmasıyla IT altyapılarını yönetmek ve izlemekle ilgili yatırımlar yapılıyor. Fakat bu problemin çıkmasına engel olmaya yönelik bir çözüm ve yatırım olmuyor maalesef. Problemler çünkü kompleksiteyle geliyor. Dolayısıyla hala bu alanda problemi bulmaya yönelik yatırımların arttığını ve devam ettiğini görüyoruz. Burada da Mark'ın anlatacağı iki tane gerçek hayat senaryosu var. StackState'in gerçekleştirdiği. Eminim bu senaryolarda kendi hayatınızda da yaşadığınız bazı parçaları bulacaksınız, göreceksiniz. Çok iyi anlaşılacağını düşünüyorum o yüzden StackState'in. Ama bundan da başka ileride isterseniz, gerekli görürseniz demo yapmak veya POC yapmak gibi imkanlar da olacaktır. Umarım dediğim gibi Mark'ın anlatacağı bu case'ler hayatınızdan yansımalar ve fikirler gösterir, görür. Ben sözü Mark'a bırakayım ve bundan sonra gerçek senaryoları dinleyelim isterseniz. So, Mark, I made a brief intro about Forcerta and what StackState does, what the position in the market is. So, I'll hand over the microphone to you now.
Thank you, Cenk. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Mark. I am the Senior Solutions Engineer of StackState. More than 20 years of experience in IT in a variety of environments like IT operations analytics, monitoring, business service management, and all that kind of stuff. So today I will talk about what is AIOps, kind of demystifying AIOps. Well, we'll talk about what capabilities should be present in an AIOps solution, how does the market look like, what vendors out there, and what would be the strategy for you as a client to take in this journey. After that, I will discuss two live AIOps use cases from customers of StackState. So when we talk about AIOps, I think this is a very nice picture to kind of talk about that, because in this case, this restaurant saw an increasing demand of food, but instead of investing in more people, this restaurant choose to invest in more technology, like you see. So what that cook is doing will be replicated by those two robots. So investing in technology instead of throwing more money and more people to the same problem is what they choose for here. So when we asked our customers during some webinars and seminars, would you describe AIOps in 3 words? These were the ones that came up. So we see a lot of different things like artificial intelligence, obviously, automation, machine learning, automation, visibility, predicting, and so on, and so on. So what actually is taking place in the market are 3 dimensions of complexity. First of all, we see an increasing complexity or increasing growth of the volume of data. Like we all know, about 90% of all data currently available in the world has been generated in the last year, and that will continue. So an exponential growth of data. So how would you cope with that increasing data increasement? Also an increasing variety of technologies that are taking place. Like we all see moving from monoliths to microservices. We see Kubernetes, Docker, different cloud flavors like Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and so on and so on. So no new technologies are more common, and typically we see that customers have a hybrid environment and not a single monolith or a on-prem only. And then last but not least, we also see an increasing velocity of changes, not only because that increasing technology and kind of increasing volume, but also when we look at DevOps practices where the developers are supposed to do much more incremental changes during the day instead of as what we used to do a couple of years ago, only a couple of times a year. So how do you cope with that? And that is exactly where AIOps is actually perfectly suited to cope with that problem. So let's have a look at this simple diagram. When we see that complexity growing, when you keep on doing what you used to do with traditional IT operations or IT operations analytics or standard monitoring, we see that it will have an exponential growth of the team size or the effort you have to put in. So 2 times as complex your environment gets, you might need 4 times as much people. So AIOps is here to stay to help you to get that growth to sublinear. So 10 times as complex in this case will require you only 2 times more people. So, and of course that needs automation, artificial intelligence and machine learning to cope with that data and kind of give augmented arguments to the people that's supposed to solve that problem. So what should the capabilities be of an AIOps platform? Well, this is a picture of Gartner. Let me quickly explain this one. Let's first have a look at the circle. We see three different areas. We see the observe area, the engage area, and the act area. And of course, it's a circular process. You observe, you see what's going on, you make sure that it will be handled by the right person, and then you will either manually or automatic remediation efforts. From an input perspective, an AIOps platform should be capable of ingesting or consuming any type of data, whether that is real-time data or historical data, and then log files, metrics, wire data, and even document and text. That is in that AIOps platform will then be handled by the technology, and that will enable you to do proper historical analysis, apply anomaly detection, and anomaly detection will be typically an example of reducing the configuration efforts needed by the IT operations people, and performance analysis, and in the end also very important, do correlation and contextualization. But this is all very fine, and we see that pretty much all the vendors out there that used to be monitoring companies or IT service management companies or any other area of IT moving to AIOps, and they tell you we are AIOps. So what does that mean? Are they lying to you, or is there a more subtle answer to that? Well, I think it's the last one, because we see a differentiation between 2 types of players here. We see the specialists who originally came from a specialist area, like the APM vendors like Dynatrace and AppDynamics, and we see generalists. So here you have an overview of all different types of vendors. For example, when we look at event correlation, Moogsoft is a very strong player, for example, but they really focus on events only. When we look at topology visualization, there are 2 mentioned, Science Logic and StackState. And here we see, for example, ServiceNow is coming from the IT service management environment, also moving into AIOps. But this makes it all pretty much complicated for our customers to figure out, yeah, but what vendor should I choose to work with to help me with the journey and the AIOps? Well, let's explain this pretty complicated picture, because this is the strategy that clients could follow. And we have three laid out over here. And just before I start explaining this, there is no better one. Let's make that clear over here. So when we look at the diagonal axis, this is the act axis. So there are three stages or three maturity levels in the AIOps. The first one is you have no automation at all. You start a journey with AIOps, you want in the end come to level 3, where level 3 kind of represents AI, autonomous operations. And in between, you have level 2, where you have humans, automation, operation tasks. Well, to follow this journey, you need to invest in two types of areas. And these are represented on the horizontal and the vertical axis. First of all, you need also to invest in the reasoning capabilities. So reasoning capability is all about developing algorithms, using out-of-the-box algorithms, having data scientists in your own team that start implementing algorithms. So that's where you should invest. However, you also should invest in the perception axis. So that's represented on the vertical axis. Because when we talk to data scientists, and suppose you are over here already, well, you can develop the most complicated and sophisticated algorithms in the world. But if you do not have the right subset of data to let that algorithms work against, then it's pretty useless. Because when we talk to data scientists, they tell us about 80% of my time I spent on collecting the right data for me to make sensible and useful machine learning algorithms. And typically that data is then scattered around. I'll receive it by email. I have to get it from the monitoring department. I have to get it from a log aggregation tool. I have to normalize that data. And then I have a subset of data which I can work with. But then when I have finished my algorithm, that data might not be relevant anymore because something changed in the environment. So there's no way of getting to number 3 by investing in only one of them. So I talked about the client, the vendor slide before, where we have specialists and generalists. And again, none of these way paths to number 3 is better than the other one. However, as StackState, we are more the generalist types of vendor over here. So we say, especially what I said before, algorithms can only be useful if you have the right data. That means also we believe that you have to have contextualized data. So we call that over here topology aware data lake. So that data is not only a collection of metrics, logs, and traces, but also has understanding of how everything is connected. And of course, the shortest way to number 3 is this diagonal line, but it's very hard that you continuously have to balance between investing in more perception or investing in more reasoning. So the generalist approach is the one that I would suggest. However, some are choosing the specialist approach again. So this is the way how we see the AIOps journey to in the end come to AI autonomous operations. So having said so, let's now bring that into practice and talk about 2 use cases from StackState with 2 of our customers over here in the Netherlands. And I will talk about what their challenge was, how what the approach was they took, what the solution was, and what the benefits for both of them were after implementing this. So let's first talk about Nationale Nederlanden, NN. It is a financial institution in the Netherlands that is active in multiple areas like mortgage, loans, retail banking, wholesale banking, consumer banking, and so on and so on. Well, we started with them within the banking environment, so the consumer banking. And what was their challenge? Well, they started their AIOps journey a couple of years already ago by having the idea, let's first make sure that we have all the data in one place. So they choose Splunk for that. So they kind of convinced all the teams and implemented the processes and the governance around that to make sure that all data would be landing in Splunk itself. So, for example, monitoring data from Prometheus, AWS CloudWatch, they had several monitoring tools, pretty much like all the customers we work with. But not only monitoring data was consolidated, also log files, IT service management data, CNPB data, and so on. And this was a good start, to be honest, because from that moment on, they had one place where they could digest the information and create different types of dashboards, like an example shown over here. This dashboard represents the performance of a specific business application. in this case, one of the the agent companies that sell banks loans to people. So insight in your end user performance is very crucial. Another good example of a dashboard they created with that data is Splunk was this business dashboard where they showed the availability percentage, which was marked red over here, as you can see. So they had a poor availability figure. Therefore, they also had a very bad customer satisfaction score. And also the net promoter score was not as they desired. So again, they had all the data in one place, and they figured out, or actually they assumed, that with Splunk itself, they could also create the dependency mapping and having that contextualization implemented. However, that appeared to be much labor work, very labor intensive. And when they finish a specific dashboard, it is also static. That means that if something changes down the stack, that dashboard would pretty much be obsolete. So it's cool that you see we have bad availability, but if you do not understand where that comes from, this is what their challenge actually was. So then they start working with StackState. So we put StackState on top of Splunk, and the StackState technology is actually creating dependency mapping automatically. And in this case, we did it on Splunk because that data has been consolidated in one place. But for StackState itself, it actually doesn't matter if that data is in one place or that StackState has to get that data from multiple places. Either way, it will be working like that. So by having that automatically dependency mapping on a dynamic way, so that as soon as something changes in let's say your IT environment, that would be recognized by StackState. And what this customer actually told us, they said, yeah, we see the cause, we see the impact, but we do not see the relations between them. And this is again where that perception phase is so important. You have to have an understanding how everything is related to the proper root cause analysis. So the solution is represented over here. It's in a screenshot, an example of that environment where you clearly see dependency mappings from a logical CI perspective, business application to application environments, databases, and not represented in this picture, but that would go all the way down to the compute layer, the physical data center, cloud environments, and so on and so on. So let's have a closer look at what we look at here. Again, different types of layers represented and the dependency mapping between them. So as you can see over here, there is a database in critical status, and it is propagated the status by StackState all the way to all the components that actually relate to this database. So by seeing this database being a problem, it immediately will indicate that it would have a potential impact on the business application itself. In this previous screen on the right side, you see all the available telemetry. So StackState is able to visualize not only the topology, but also give all the available telemetry and automatically map them to the component. So here we click the payment service, and here, for example, we see Google Analytics data, the number of payments per minute with an anomaly detected on that, and in other metrics coming from a different monitoring to latency distribution. So by giving them this visualization, what was the benefits for this customer? Well, first of all, they were able to reduce the mean time to repair from approximately 1 day to less than 1 hour, which obviously resulted in an increasing availability number and obviously resulted in a better customer satisfaction score and also increased their net promoter score. So now let's talk about KPN. KPN is one of the biggest telecom provider in the Netherlands, but it's also one of the biggest managed service providers in the Netherlands. And they are around for quite some years already. So what was their challenge? Well, they had loads of data, same pretty much like the previous one I talked about, but they didn't have any insight, which resulted in a too long mean time to repair. And another very interesting use case over here was that they were not able to identify idle resources. I said before, this company exists for more than 30 years already. So they told us, we have so much stuff around in our environment. Our data centers are filled with equipment. And we know that a lot of that equipment probably is not working for any end customer anymore, but nobody dares to pull out the plug because we don't know if that machine, for example, is still related to do something for an end customer. So how can we figure out what a possible list of candidates would be for proactive decommissioning? So also this customer invested in Splunk, collected all the data and centralized that in that data lake Splunk. So same with NN Bank, they used monitoring from CA, Centerity, They got information from the ServiceNow, CNDB, VMware, different monitoring tools, centralized in Splunk with pretty much the same idea I explained with NN Bank. When we have all the data in one place, that will probably solve the problem. However, again, the dependency mapping was the cumbersome process over here within Splunk. So we put StackState on top of Splunk again, and that resulted again in that automatic dependency mapping, and gave them insight in how everything is related from a business application level to hardware rack, on-prem to cloud, and microservice to legacy. So for reducing the mean time to repair, it's pretty much the same situation as I explained for the previous customer. Now let's talk about a little bit more about that proactive decommissioning or idle resource use case. First of all, when you visualize your components and you can see if things are connected, how they are connected, or if they are not connected at all, like shown over here, because these 6 virtual machines appear to not connected to anything in the environment as for the rest. So this could mean that these machines are there, but they are not doing anything. So, and of course you need to do some iterations on this process, like for example, making a list of these machines and then use the query language in StackState, for example, to look at the activities on those machines over the last 2 or 3 months, CPU usage or whatsoever. So we gave them a query which they could ask the system, because StackState had everything about topology and telemetry and time in one model, and we presented them a list of possible candidates for proactive decommissioning. And it appeared that it had an accuracy about 80 to 90%. So before, the way they had to work to figure out what machines are still active or not, they had to send people into their data centers, looking at the backs of the server rack, see if lights were flashing. So with this one, we gave them a huge increasement in productivity and efficiency in identifying those idle resources, which in the end appear to be capable of switching off about 50% of the total equipment, which of course resulted in a huge cost saving. So the benefits for them, again, also be able to reduce the mean time to repair, having insight in what components are actually working for which end customers, and the possibility to identify idle resources. So to recap, the overall solution benefits is first you have full stack visibility. And again, we believe that without visibility, without understanding of how everything is connected, it is very hard to figure out what things are correlated. You can try machine learning models with natural language processing. They might present you with a result that this and this is related, but in reality they are not related because they are not connected. So full stack visibility gives you that first step in that AIOps journey process. The second thing is having a model in place where you have all data available, not only IT data, but also, for example, business related data, like my customer satisfaction score, Google Analytics data, weather forecast for my sake, if that is of any importance of your business, in one model. With then automatically mapping of all those dependencies, real time and dynamic. So that means if something changes down the stack, that will be immediately represented by StackState. Like this virtual machine moves to another ES6 server, so this virtual machine is connected to that customer, now it's over there. And with that understanding and combining that topology visualization with all the telemetry, will also give you more capabilities in understanding how a problem down the stack could possibly impact the business. So having said so, of course, this is all for our holy grail to come up to 100% business process uptime. Just having said so what are the key takeaways before I hand it over back to Cenk again for the conclusion? Well, I want you to remember these 3 points. First of all, it is extremely important to be able to relate business to IT. We have been saying this for the last 20 years, I know, but without that visualization, it's pretty much impossible. Also measure what is most important. Just as an example I showed before, if Google Analytics gives you very good insight on what your customers are experiencing, there's no reason not to take those metrics into the system as well. And also said before, it's not a point solution, it is a journey. And typically a lot of our customers tell us, yeah, but my data is not at the right level, we should invest more in that. I think that is no excuse. You should start today, walk that journey, and then build on top of that by investing in both that perception phase and reasoning phase at the same time. So this concludes my part of the webinar, and I will hand it over back to Jack.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was a brilliant presentation of that live scenarios that we have with the customers. So I'll go for Turkish for a minute and then come back to you.
Yeah.
Bu çıkarımlar konusunda duydunuz Mark'tan, business, iş dünyasıyla IT dünyası hep konuştuğumuz şey, hep tartıştığımız şey. İlişkilendirmek çok önemli. IT iş dünyası için var. Dolayısıyla IT metriklerin, IT ölçümlerin de iş dünyası için faydalı ve anlamlı şekilde ölçülebilmesi, ilişkilendirilmesi çok önemli. Bunu yapabilmek buradaki StackState'in hedeflediği amaçlardan bir tanesi. Böyle düşünmemiz gerekiyor. Bir diğeri AIOps bir yolculuk. Bu yolculuk derken biraz ürkütücü oluyor ama yani her bir IT sistemin entegrasyonu, yönetilmesi, izlenmesi, ilişkilendirilmesi kolay bir şey değil ama birinci günden fayda elde edecek şekilde bu yolculuğa başlamak önemli diye düşünüyoruz. Bu alanlarda dediğim gibi ITOps, ITOA arkasından AIOps kavramlarının gelişimiyle AIOps'ta bunların artık gerçeklenebildiğini görmek çok sevindirici. Bu yüzden de StackState Forcerta portföyünde. Chat tarafından sorular geldiğini gördüm. Onlarla da ilgili konuşacağız. Ama şu andan itibaren de sormak isterseniz ya mikrofon açabiliriz ya sorularınızı yazabilirsiniz. Ben Mark'a onları aktaracağım. Şimdi var olan soruları aktaracağım ama ilk önce kendi sorum var. Önce onu soracağım. İngilizce soracağım izninizle ki Mark'tan cevap alalım. Mark, we have some questions on the chat already.
Okay.
But I have my own question first to ask. You mentioned Splunk in the both cases, scenarios. So it reminds me of, is Splunk required, or in general, is a CM system required for such a system to monitor, to successfully operate? And plus, if Splunk or some other is in the case, their differentiator is there, if in case it should be compared, I don't think it is, but what is the differentiation between the CM systems and StackState?
So you asked me what the differentiators is between StackState and Splunk. I'm not sure if I got the question correct.
That's one actually, because we hear that Splunk in somehow also does some analytics and actions based on that. Plus, what is the importance of a CM system to operate for StackState in general? That's two questions in one, let's say.
Okay. Well, let's first talk about the first one. But just like we showed with the two use cases, the customers NN Bank and KPN, they kind of assumed that having everything in Splunk then would enable them to create that dependency mapping as well. And technically, that is okay. That is also possible. However, I think the big differentiator between StackState and Splunk is the way we structure the data. Like Splunk is just a table space database where you have to manually join everything together. So that's really complicated and require, first of all, a lot of skills, but also a huge amount of lines of query. We figured out that some queries were actually built up by more than 800 lines of query. With StackState, we developed our own version graph database, and of course, a graph database is a fundamental different way of storing data and much more suitable to reason about this component, how it's related to that component. So that graph database really only knows about a component, their properties like telemetry, monitoring metrics, metadata, version, and so on, and how it's related to another component. So the automatically dependency mapping within StackState is actually using different technologies, or actually reusing different technologies. Like we see that some companies rely on discovery technology only. And we have an holy belief that none of these technologies currently in the marketplace will cover your full picture. However, they do cover a specific part of that environment. Like your discovery mechanism will be it's assumable that it will do a good job in your on-prem environment. But when you then move to very dynamic environments like Kubernetes or Docker containers, it's difficult for discovery. Like APM tooling uses tracing technology. That will give you a great deal of value, but will have their limitations as well. For example, it will never know anything about network equipment because you cannot install an agent on a router. And so there are different technologies that StackState actually connects to. So in this case, all that information in these use cases were already consolidated into Splunk. So we had only that data lake to connect to. But whether, for example, they did not have, let's take KPN as an example, they were not having the CA centrality data into Splunk yet. And for StackState, it doesn't matter because then we will get data from Splunk and we will get data from CA centrality and then merge and deduplicate that into one unified view. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It's clear to me. I hope it's clear to everyone. So we have some more questions already on chat. Faruk Bey sormuş, VM ve Windows gibi ortamlarınız var. Tahminimce entegrasyonu kolay teknolojiler. Ama tahminimce zor olanlar da var. Bu projeye nasıl başlamalıyız? Bu şekilde başlanırsa fayda edilebilir mi? So the question is from Faruk. Says, we have some well-known technologies like Windows and VM systems, but we also have some specific technologies which we think are difficult to integrate in terms of integrate with StackState.
Okay.
So how shall we start this project? If we start with the easy ones, could that be a beneficial project?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's also something that we kind of, let's say, support. Like I said before, it is a journey. So you will never have a big bang by you install StackState and then the next day everything will be you can send everybody home. So yes, first of all, when we start a project with a customer, so this is typically our approach, we want to deliver quick time to value. So not creating a plan for the next 3 years, but let's say start small, select just like we did with NN. We start with their banking environment. They had mortgage, they had insurances, but let's start with one business unit, in this case NN. Then figure out where the kind of low-hanging fruit is from a data perspective. So we need data from topology, could be a CMDB, could be VMware vSphere, very nice example, because it will be really quick time to value, or for example, hooking up to your AWS or Microsoft Azure. That same is applicable for telemetry, like connecting to vCenter, will not only give you topology from the virtual machines, the ESX service, and the storage connected to that, but vCenter will also give you the telemetry, like the metrics of all those components, because it's also a monitoring tool. So typically start small, look where you can get the best value and the quickest value to really get an idea of how everything connected, and then land and expand, meaning hooking up additional data sources. The question, the beginning of your question, you also mentioned, yeah, we might have some difficult technologies or even in-house built technologies, which we typically run into as well, because the technology of StackState, or actually the model, is data agnostic. It's kind of to say, whenever that data is available and accessible, we can get it in the system. We don't do magic. If the data is not available or not accessible, then we cannot do magic and show you stuff that's not existing. So when we start working with customers, we typically take a discovery phase where we have a kind of workshop with them to kind of draw the picture on the wall, like what do you want to see? What specific business unit or business applications will we start with? And what would be, let's say, the first candidates for integrating with, and then preferably with out-of-the-box integrations we have, like VMware, vSphere, ServiceNow, CMDB, Zabbix, and Splunk, for example.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question related to this, I guess, but I will ask. Tarık Bey has asked, we have an in-house management tool. How could that be integrated? So I think you answered that already as well.
Yeah.
So the data is available in it. Go ahead, please.
So there's multiple ways how we connect to that data. Again, the model is data agnostic, so we support both a pull and a push mechanism. Typically, most of the times, actually, we are capable of connecting to the API of a specific tool. But if that in-house built tool, for example, doesn't have an API, then there should be other ways to connect to that data. So again, whenever that data is available and accessible, we can then either pull that from, for example, reading it from we done that before with another customer. They collected all data from a specific in-house built tool in a SQL database. Then we will use JDBC or ODBC connection to connect to that database and read that information. Sometimes what we also see is that we cannot access those tools, or there is no way to get data out of there, but there is a way to export data from that tool. So then you can export that data in a specific format. That's a JSON format that we require. And then that JSON file can then be pushed to our StackState API. So either we pull it out of the system by connecting to APIs or JDBC, ODBC connections, or read text files even if possible, or that data is being pushed to our API.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have one more question, but coming back to the previous question, you said start small since AIOps is a journey. Starting small would still help the IT to business relation and help us with the root cause analysis aspects, right? Because I wanted to emphasize that starting small would still be beneficial for the companies, corporations.
Definitely. For example, you know, start with an export from your CMDB from a specific part of the environment. Then that's the first step you could do. A really quick time to value instead of getting that data out of the CMDB, requiring the access to it, maybe opening firewalls. Just start with an export of your CMDB and then, for example, also hook up VMware vSphere. So it's a small part of the environment, but it will give you immediate insight how those logical CIs, for example, then could be related to the compute layer, the ESX servers, the virtual machines, and so on. And then you expand that with adding additional data sources like your deployment mechanism, and maybe network information from network management systems, and so on and so on. Start small and then expand all the way further.
Thank you. So I have the last question in the chat, but you can still ask. Hala soru sorabilirsiniz chat tarafından. Işıl Hanım asks if you can do a demo. Well, I want to emphasize the answer, but a demo, a live demo, a POC. How do we do that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, of course, I would be more than happy to facilitate some live demos to people from your side that are interested. So I would suggest that you contact Cenk for that because Forcerta is our business partner in Turkey. And then, of course, we can set up a live demo for where we explain more about the concept and then, of course, do a live demo. From that moment on, when we have a more interesting conversation like, yeah, you know, this really could help me solving my problems. And then typically what we do is setting up a workshop with a customer. So a workshop typically takes about 3 to 4 hours. We will then go more in detail. So we will have a couple of questions up front, like what technology do you use? Then we kind of split that workshop in a couple of topics. First of all, going to the concept again, but then with preferably all stakeholders at the same table. So business owner, budget owner, but also DevOps people and everything in between. So that after that concept presentation, everybody has the same understanding of what we're talking about. Then we will do a more tailor-made demo. Instead of a standard demo, a banking demo, or managed service provider demo, we try to build a demo that kind of reflects your environment. So people will look at that, will more recognize it and see, hey, this is how my environment could look like in StackState. For example, if you use vSphere or you will use Hyper-V, then we will tailor that demo to reflect that technology as well. Then the third part we do is then open the hood. So we really do a deep dive into the technical environment because we typically see, you know, we can say whatever we want, but people say, yeah, you know, show me. I only believe you if you really explain to me how that really works under the hood. So that will be a deep technical session. After that, we will talk about how we see onboarding process. So we have best practices around that, a kind of simple 10 steps to AIOps, as we call that. So 10 very simple defined steps to help you guide to start and do the first iteration. Then after that, a workshop, then it's a very simple, does it make sense for you or doesn't it make sense for you? And if it makes sense for you, we will then move into maybe a proof of concept situation. But that's something that I will let be handled by my sales colleagues. I'm a solution engineer, so I don't talk about licensing contracts and that sort of stuff. So I'm more too happy that you negotiate that with Cenk or one of our sales people.
Sure. Forcerta or StackState will do our best to go over those steps.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions here. Bu arada sorularınız varsa burada yazıp sorabileceğiniz gibi Forcerta'ya ulaşıp sorabilirsiniz. StackState'e ulaşıp sorabilirsiniz. Biz de sizlerle burada gördüğümüz katılımcılarla tekrar temas kurmaya çalışacağız. Başka sorularınız varsa almaya çalışacağız. Umarım daha ileri adımları da atıyor olabiliriz. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Mark, because it looks like we covered all the questions we have on chat and asked if you would like to have any questions further, they can contact us anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I just want to thank everybody for attending this webinar. I hope it was useful, and I really would like to meet you either virtually or hopefully in the future physically again.
Well, you were in Istanbul 3 months ago, 4 months
Yeah.
ago.
Oh,
So
man.
we would like to see
We
you.
just talked about it with my colleague. We want to go back.
Yeah, we are looking forward to that.
Me too.
Çok teşekkür ederiz herkese katıldığı için. And thank you very much, Mark, for presenting the cases. Hope
Yeah,
to
welcome.
see you again on web or on local. Have a nice day. Teşekkür ederiz. Katıldığınız için iyi günler. Görüşmek üzere.
Have a nice day, everybody.